By late May of 1864, the Overland Campaign had carried Union Army from Wilderness through Spotsylvania into weary march ever southward toward Richmond, each day filled with skirmish, mud hunger. Yet still, Grant pressed on, never retreating, always sidling left like wrestler seeking advantage. On May 31st, the columns neared crossroads called Cold Harbor, a name soon to become etched with horror. The ground here rolling with open fields dotted by woodlots, creeks sluggish through marsh, Confederates under Lee already dug stout works along ridges, felled trees tangled abatis, trenches deep lines interlocked. It was fortress grown from earth. Union cavalry under Sheridan struck first, seizing part of crossroads in swirling fight. Sabers flashing, pistols cracking, dust and smoke mingled as horsemen clashed. Then Confederate infantry countered, driving blue troopers back into fields. Shots echoed night long. At dawn of June 1st, heavy infantry arrived Hancock's corps, weary yet determined. They deployed into lines across fields, wheat high swaying in breeze, then cut down by musketry as regiments advanced. Men surged through stalks, bullets cutting swaths like scythes. Cannon belched from ridges, shells shrieking overhead. Colors dipped rose again, bodies dotted golden field, red blotches spreading fast. Still Union brigades pressed, stormed first line of works, seized ground at cost of thousands. Grant rode forward, calm eyes scanning works. He ordered further assaults tomorrow, believing position could be broken if pressed with weight. Entire Army engineers studied maps pointed where lines bent, promising breach. Yet soldiers muttered grim. Already they sensed trenches, too strong slope, too open. Approach, too deadly. A veteran wrote in diary, "We are ordered to storm walls of hell tomorrow, and we know it." That night, men scratched last letters to families by flicker of candle. I heard one whisper to comrade, "If I fall, send this to my mother." Folded paper damp with sweat, ink smeared by trembling fingers. Some pinned notes inside coats, fearing bodies never found. They cleaned muskets, sharpened bayonets, but faces heavy with resignation, not eagerness. Officers walked lines offering words, yet eyes betrayed doubt. They had seen Spotsylvania. They knew what awaited at dawn. Confederates too prepared Lee's men, strengthened works, laying more logs, digging deeper, placing artillery to rake approaches. They listened to axes through night lanterns glowing behind parapets. They knew assault coming and swore they would reap harvest of men before sunrise. Dawn of June 3rd came pale and humid. Fog clung low over fields. Dew soaked tall grass, darkening uniforms as thousands of Union soldiers formed into columns, silence heavy. No drums, only whispered orders. Muskets loaded bayonets. Fixed, faces drawn, eyes hollow. Some men carried slips of paper pinned to jackets, their names and hometowns written, so bodies might be identified after certain knowledge of death weighed heavier than packs. At 4:30, signal guns boomed. Lines surged forward across open ground. Within moments, storm of fire met them. Musketry from parapets erupted like continuous rip. Cannon loaded with canister tore gaps wide. Shells shrieked above, exploded in rear fields blossomed with flame of rifle volleys. Men fell by hundreds, yet lines pressed on. Flags dipped, rose again. Officers shouted, "Go on, boys, go on though bullets cut them down." The ground sloped gently upward, offering no cover. Every step taken under hail of iron soldiers dropped to knees fired. Rows staggered forward only to be swept by volleys. Regiments lost shape. Companies dissolved into knots crawling through grass. Smoke-thickened sun broke through revealing spectacle. Ghastly Union brigades pinned yards from enemy works, unable to advance, unable to retreat. One survivor wrote, Never had death come so quick. Men lay in rows, as if mown by scythe. Officers tried to rally, but no power could drive lines further. Within 8 minutes, thousands had fallen. The assault failed before it began. Yet firing continued, men clinging to earth, digging with bayonets. Tin cups, even bare hands, to scrape shallow holes, seeking protection from storm overhead. Grant rode to front, heard reports grim. He clenched cigar, said nothing for long. Moment then ordered assaults halted. Yet confusion delays meant some corps still hurled forward through morning. Each repetition slaughter. More bodies in heaps. Smoke hung for miles. Groans carried louder than cannon. Confederates behind works fired almost leisurely. Their defense near perfect, Lee himself observed grim but steady, knowing each volley cost Union dear won. Officer compared it to felling forest of men, each round dropping swath. Entire wheat field, once golden, now trampled sodden with blood. By noon, firing slackened. Union survivors clung to ground under sun. Heat rose flies gathered. Dead lay uncollected. Wounded cried for water. Some crawled toward lines under cover of nightfall. Others perished where they fell, between works narrow. No man's land filled with suffering. Men too close to rescue, yet too exposed to move. Corpses bloated stench, heavy even in heat. Soldiers held noses while firing continued. That evening, Grant wrote to Washington. Cold Harbor. Assault not successful. Heavy loss. Few words masking weight of horror. Men whispered they had been sent into butchery knowingly. Some cursed commanders, others silent, staring into distance, as if souls drained. After the futile storm of June 3rd, silence did not bring mercy. The fields between lines lay strewn with thousands, dead rigid. Staring sky, wounded still alive, groaned under sun. Heat-swelled bodies, blackened faces, buzz of flies. Constant for 4 days, no truce granted, no white flags raised. Anyone who lifted head above earth met bullet. Soldiers lay pressed into ground, listening to cries of comrades helpless to aid. Some men clawed shallow furrows with bayonets to reach puddles of rainwater lapping mud like beasts. At night, wounded crawled toward lines dragging shattered limbs. Some reached safety, others collapsed short of trenches, calling weakly until voices ceased. Union pickets whispered prayers, begged permission to rescue, but orders strict. No man crossfield Confederate fire, cut down all attempts. Even hardened veterans wept, hearing groans fading hour by hour. One officer wrote, horror, greater than battle itself. Torment of hearing men die without touch of hand to comfort. Meanwhile, both armies dug deeper. Works extended miles. Earth breastworks, parapets, abatis, sharpened stakes. Defensive science reached grim perfection. Union soldiers scraped with tin cups, broken plates, anything to deepen cover. They lined trenches with logs, sandbags, barrels. At night, men reinforced parapets by hand, carrying timber through dark smoke of rifles. By day, dust of shovels by night, the landscape transformed into fortress scars, stretching horizon. Daily routine brutal. Sharpshooters ruled daylight. Any exposure, fatal men crawled along trenches, hunched like beasts. A cup of water raised carelessly, brought bullet meals eaten, lying prone, letters written under cover of earth. One private scribbled, I have not stood upright in daylight for week, like living in grave alive yet buried. Rain brought new misery, trenches filled knee-deep, water mixed with blood, carrion filth. Men shivered. Fever spread. Surgeons reported dysentery. Malaria, ague, corpses nearby seeped into wells. Soldiers drank brackish fluid. Desperate, some vomited, others too weak to care. Rats swarmed fat upon flesh, scuttling bold across sleeping men. Morale fractured. Men cursed commanders called assault murder. Some scrawled protests on trench walls. Others sunk silent eyes vacant. Veterans hardened by years confessed they felt broken. For first time, talk of despair reached even officers, Colonel wrote. I fear we lose not only lives, but faith still we hold line because order commands. Grant walked works silent. He smoked steady, yet eyes shadowed. He knew loss heavy beyond measure, but would not retreat. Strategy demanded press on toward Petersburg. Flank Richmond away from these impregnable lines. He resolved quietly never again to order such frontal storm, yet bore burden without public lament. On June 7th, white flags finally rose. Officers met between lines in silence to arrange truce. Details briefed 2 hours, permitted to recover, wounded, and bury dead, when signal-given soldiers from both sides walked into no man's land. Faces pale, voices hushed. The sight unspeakable. Bodies lay in heaps, some already half consumed by sun. Vermin stench unbearable. Men covered mouths with rags, still gagged. Corpses, bloated eyes gone. Uniforms rotted, identification near impossible, except by scraps of paper or trinkets pinned close to chest. Wounded still found alive after days, their lips cracked, tongues black, they whispered for water. Rescue parties lifted them gently, some too weak to cry. Some died, a stretcher raised. Only few survived more than hours. Surgeons worked frantic, but infection advanced beyond remedy. Relief too late, yet still offered dignity. Final touch, hand clasp, whispered prayer. Burials swift, shallow trenches dug by detail. Bodies lowered without ceremony. Chaplains read psalms, voices trembling. Soldiers wept openly, though hardened by years of war. They felt shame that comrades left so long untended. Officers wrote reports in terse lines, but hearts heavy. More than 7,000 Union casualties from one morning assault. Confederate losses far fewer, for they fought behind works. Arithmetic of slaughter, carved forever into memory. After truce, firing resumed desultory, yet battle spirit. Broken men on both sides sensed futility. Confederates clung to trenches, impregnable. Union dug parallel lines, but no further storm attempted. Grant weighed options, then ordered movement southward. Again toward James River. Petersburg, new objective. He accepted failure here, but not defeat. Campaign pressed onward. Among soldiers' memory of Cold Harbor, bitter veterans wrote later they had never before gone into action knowing so certainly they would not return. Men scrawled names on slips of paper, pinned to coats before assault. That image haunted nation families, kept those scraps like relics of sacrifice. Words 300 yards in 8 minutes, and thousands dead, became epitaph of field. Grant himself admitted regret. In later years, he wrote, Cold Harbor would have been spared if could live over again. Rare confession from man of iron will. Yet truth stood. Union Army had bled uselessly here for nothing, gained only lives lost, the cost of command heavy on his shoulders. Soldiers respected his honesty, though pain endured still. For me as witness, Cold Harbor revealed end of illusions. This was no longer war of gallant charges, banners flying, but of trenches, attrition, endurance. Men buried alive in earthworks fighting for inches. Republic would win by grinding, not by glory. Cold Harbor showed price in clearest ink of blood. When I left field smoke thin over ridges, I wrote, Nation must remember not triumph here, but warning. May no commander forget waste when planning future storms. For courage of men cannot alone breach walls of earth, cost too high lesson carved into soil of Cold Harbor forever.